Hi, beautiful friends. Thanks for joining me. It's David Ault, and welcome to the gathering. One of my nearest and dearest friends was over here at the house this week. We work together, running a nonprofit that provides global education. And every single year at this time, there's a lot of stuff going on because we're preparing for a big fundraiser, a big event next month. And there's the typical strategy and checklist and to-dos and preparations and ask to try to raise money for our cause. And as we were hovering over all the paperwork and the to-dos, she made the comment, I don't know, I just feel like I'm bothering people. And the moment that she said that, I felt it. I mean, I really felt it because I too share the same feeling. And I can imagine that you do too. It doesn't have to be about running a nonprofit or looking for or soliciting donations. It could be about anything that involves asking. And if you Google what to do if you feel like bothering people, you will find a ton of information. A lot of it very useful, a lot of it talking about social anxiety, and I have nothing new to add to any of that. But I want to share with you perhaps just a little bit of a different approach with regards to all things bothering people. First of all, I feel like I'm bothering people is a thought. It's a thought, okay? And I want you to laugh with me and be a little amused by and in awe of the fact that there are statistics out there that say that you and I think about 60,000 thoughts a day. We've talked about this before. 60,000 thoughts a day. And the remarkable thing about those 60,000 thoughts is that most of them are not original. They are repetitive, recycled over and over and over again. So for example, the one we're talking about, I feel like I'm bothering people. It's a thought. And I want you to now reflect upon the fact that you and I have thought that thought for years and years and years. Perhaps its origin comes from a circumstance or an event where we perceived ourselves to be a burden. Maybe it was a comment from somebody else. The reality is that it actually doesn't matter where it originated. As long as we get to this point right now where we say, it's a thought, and I do not have to claim the thought or identify with the thought. What do I mean by that? The issue with these 60,000 thoughts, the majority of them that are repetitive, is that at some point in time, we've claimed them, we've owned them. Meaning that the moment that we think the thought, we identify and think, oh, the thought is relevant to me. So I'm identifying with the thought, rather than just observing these 60,000 thoughts that filter through this mechanism called consciousness, through mind. It happens all the time. That's one of the functionalities of consciousness, of mind, is that it is this wind tunnel, if you will, for all these thoughts. And where things go awry is when you and I start thinking that they're true, or when you and I claim them as valid. We take them in as our own. And that's where things like themes erupt. Themes like I'm too much, I'm a burden, I'm in the way, I will never succeed. All of the things that provide this repetition of a belief system that when you couple that with lawful reciprocity, we always continue to be right. Meaning that if the repetition of the 60,000 thoughts a day is consumed with all things I'm a burden or I'm not good enough, then the lawful reciprocity of that thought mirrors back to us everything that provides valid confirmation that yes, indeed, you are too much or you are a burden, because that's the way lawfulness works. And the more that I thought about what she said, and the more that I could identify with that, because it's just almost like a daily thing with me, that I'm bothering people. And I know that it doesn't have anything to do with the work that we're doing. I know that it doesn't have anything to do with my value or my personal worth. I know that it doesn't have anything to do with me, actually, intellectually, conceptually, when I understand what it means to claim a thought, and yet I still claim it. What's going on there? I imagine that my friend, she is experiencing the same thing. It's that every single time this time of year comes up, there's this like wave of overwhelm of like, oh, here we go again. But it's not just seasonal, it's daily. There's always something where we go by the axiom that it is better to give than to receive. There's no truth to that. There's no value in that other than the fact that we've claimed it. We've taken that thought and we've identified with it. And we've said yes. So it's the same thing with I'm bothering people. We just keep claiming it. And so it continues to be the experience. So in other words, we're always right. We are always right by right of consciousness. The field of those 60,000 thoughts that are just so massively huddled in there that we've identified with, continue to mirror back to us everything that says, yeah, you're right, you are bothering people. So of course it's going to feel like an effort. Of course it's going to feel almost hopeless and useless. And all of that will translate itself into the energy that we experience. Whew. Probably not the first time you've heard any of this, and yet here we go. We continue to do it, right? So how does one stop identifying with thought? There are all kinds of techniques and methods, and one of them is not better than the other. And all that I can really share with you is that I'm in this with you, and I really, really, really sense that this is the pathway and the liberation to freedom. And yet sometimes we got to go through all the methods and all of the steps and all of the 1, 2, 3s and the practices. And yet it really is as simple as the moment that you notice the feeling to just notice it and not claim it. And yes, that takes practice. And some of the key things in noticing the thought that I am bothering people and not claiming it is not to get caught in having to fix it. It's not about fixing anything. It's just about noticing it. It's not even about changing the thought. This is going to feel a little radical. It's not about changing or affirming it away. It's about noticing it and stop holding it. Stop gripping it. Stop any kind of effort whatsoever and just notice it and see if you, I know this is going to sound corny, but flow love to it and just go, ah. There's something about loving the thought. I don't know how to teach that other than to ask you to try it. Because it seems as though the most effective way to stop identifying with something is to love it and thank it and set it free. And you and I have a long-standing identification with feeling like we are a burden. We have a long-standing identification with I'm bothering. And so I want you and myself to find a little bit of freedom in that, a little bit of liberation from that. And so, yes, you might have to go the pathway of technique and steps and all of that. But when you're ready, I know that I'm ready. Wouldn't it be amazing if the thought occurs, we see it, we love it as just something that happens in this plane of form, in the field of duality. Duality will always be. Yin, yang will always be. It isn't about battling it and conquering it. It's just about loving it for what it is. There's duality. And then going about the business of asking. Ask. This isn't about how to get better at asking. It's about asking. And when I think about the word, even the word asking, and when I think about even the word bothering, isn't it fascinating that bother contains other, and that othering is perpetuating separation? So to feel like we're bothering contains this sense of, even from an etymology standpoint, this perpetual othering. And so, we will always conjure up feedback that indeed you are bothering. But to love it simply means to love it and then to ask anyway. And yet now, when I think about that often repeated scripture that says, ask and it is given, there's a different nuance to that. Because now, when I ask free of identification, when I ask free from method and how, where, who, I just ask. In other words, it's like an offering to the bounty of the universe. And in my asking, I let it go. And I trust. And I notice that there has been other information in the past about this same thing, that once you ask, then don't ask anymore. Keep asking. I say keep asking. Keep asking is a way to practice not identifying and not being concerned with the how. Ask and it is given isn't saying you have to ask this way. It's saying just ask, like do your part. Our participation is to let go of the allegiance that we are bothering by asking and just letting that need be known and then going about our business. And when the desire to ask again comes up, practice and ask again. There's no carte blanche method or chart that says you can only ask 3 times. Just ask. And each time that you ask, let that be the practice of letting go of the how. Letting it, I don't ask Mr. Henderson, and so I expect Mr. Henderson to be the vehicle and the pathway by which the ask is received. It's not transactional like that. The only transaction is that we live in this abundant universe. And the more that we become accustomed to not identifying with these 60,000 thoughts, that what we are, it's not David running a nonprofit. I am pure essence. And the more that I become accustomed to just asking freely without the need to know how, that then is pure reciprocity. That then is this unencumbered circuitry. And I know that it takes practice. I know that it takes practice when you and I are in environments that continue to espouse all things being a bother, all things othering. But it's something to begin to look at and incorporate. And as I do that, I hope that you will join me too. Ask and it is given. So search your heart. What is it that you feel that you are in need of? If at the core of that ask is love and support, then know that it's an opportunity to also give love and support. The thing that we feel as though we need the most is an opportunity to give that very thing. As we continue to teach ourselves and unbind ourselves from anything limiting or lack. You are not a bother. I am not a bother. What we are is pure essence, and we get to continue to practice not identifying with the thought, loving the thought. I have faith in you. I have faith in myself because you and I are the same. Much love.